row 2 and 17 in the morning. A mother grabs her child, barefoot, in the dark. The sirens are screaming again across central Israel, phones vibrating, windows rattling, car alarms joining the wail. Entire apartment blocks flooding down concrete stairwells while the Iron Dome batteries above them begin firing into the sky. Missile trails everywhere, and this time it is not a drill. Breaking tonight, Iran has launched another wave of strikes toward Israel, triggering air raid sirens across multiple cities simultaneously. Tel Aviv, Ashdod, Beersheba, sirens again, families running again, children pulled from their beds again. The war you thought you understood just changed, because this was not a single rocket, not a malicious strike, not a symbolic attack. This was a coordinated missile launch connected directly to Iranian military planning, confirmed by the Israeli Defense Forces, confirmed by Reuters, confirmed by a senior U.S. defense official who briefed CNN within the last hour. And inside Israeli command bunkers tonight, one question is being asked again and again: how many more are coming? Because the terrifying reality is this: Iran is not firing randomly. These strikes are testing response times, mapping radar coverage, measuring interception gaps. In other words, this is preparation. Preparation for something larger, something faster, something far more dangerous. This is day 188 of the regional escalation, and what happened tonight may signal the moment this conflict moves from shadow war into open confrontation between two of the most heavily armed states in the Middle East. And if that line is crossed, the consequences will not stay in the region. Oil markets will feel it. Shipping lanes will feel it. Every military alliance in the world will feel it. Because when Iran and Israel exchange missiles directly, history shows one thing very clearly: escalation rarely stops itself, it accelerates. This is day 188, and I'm going to tell you exactly what has changed, what is coming, and why the next 48 hours may be the most important of this entire war. The military picture tonight is moving fast, faster than most people realize. At 02:11 local time, radar operators inside the southern command center of the Israeli Defense Forces detected the first launch signatures, multiple ballistic trajectories rising from western Iran. Within seconds, the alert moved across Israel's national warning grid, Sirens, nationwide. Initial reports indicate 3 separate waves of Iranian projectiles. First wave, 18 missiles. Second wave, 27 missiles. Third wave, an additional 12 missiles detected minutes later. That is 57 missiles total, not 5, not 15, 57. According to early operational data shared with Reuters and BBC, Israeli air defenses intercepted the majority using a layered system: Iron Dome, David Sling, and the Arrow 3 interceptor designed for long-range ballistic threats. But interception does not mean zero impact. Several missiles slipped through the defensive screen. Explosions were reported near Ashkelon, outside Beersheba, and in open areas south of Tel Aviv. Emergency crews confirmed multiple fires, structural damage to at least 2 residential buildings. No confirmed fatality count yet, but hospitals have activated mass casualty protocols. And here is the part most people are missing: Iran did not fire randomly. The missile trajectories came from 3 different launch corridors inside Iranian territory: western Iran, northern Iran, and an area near the Persian Gulf coast. 3 launch zones, 3 vectors, simultaneously. This matters because it complicates interception calculations dramatically. Israel's missile defense system works best when threats arrive from predictable directions. Tonight they did not. Iran is studying the system, mapping it, testing its limits, but Israel did not wait to respond. Within 40 minutes of the first siren, Israeli fighter jets were already airborne from Ramat David Air Base and Hatzerim Air Base. According to operational updates cited by CNN and Fox News, the Israeli Air Force has already begun retaliatory strikes targeting Iranian proxy infrastructure across the region. Targets include suspected weapons, depots linked to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and militia launch facilities operated by Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps units in Syria. And the scale is expanding. Israeli aircraft conducted more than 40 strike sorties in just the first 2 hours after the missile launch. Precision-guided bombs hitting command nodes, radar facilities, and storage bunkers. But here is the flip. On paper, this looks like overwhelming Israeli control of the battlefield. But Iran still holds the largest missile arsenal in the Middle East. Intelligence estimates cited by the Pentagon place that number above 3,000 medium and long-range missiles, 3,000. Let that sit for a moment. Even if Israel intercepts 90%, the math is brutal, because a sustained barrage of that size could overwhelm any defense system ever built. And tonight's attack may not have been the main event. It may have been the rehearsal, because just hours before the missiles launched, satellite tracking picked up something unusual moving through the Persian Gulf. Iranian naval units escorting transport vessels believed to be carrying additional missile components. If that assessment is correct, the next phase of this conflict could involve far more than 57 missiles. And that brings us to the most dangerous development of the entire situation: the intelligence discovery that Western analysts say could change the scale of this war overnight. Now I need to explain the most dangerous new development in this war, the one that changes everything about what we are actually facing. Because the missile sirens across Israel tonight may not be the real story. The real story is what Western intelligence believes Iran is preparing next. Within hours of the latest strikes, new satellite analysis reviewed by the Pentagon and reported by Reuters and the Washington Post revealed something extraordinary inside Western Iran. Missile launchers, moving, not one base, not two facilities, multiple mobile launch units dispersing simultaneously across mountainous terrain near Kermanshah. That matters because those units are not ordinary rockets. They are believed to be long-range ballistic systems capable of reaching every major Israeli city. Read that again. Entire Israeli population centers within range. And intelligence analysts believe tonight's missile attack was not meant to cause maximum damage. It was meant to measure Israel's defenses, radar reaction times, interceptor response windows, command coordination, testing the shield before attempting to break it, triple confirmation pattern, confirmed by imagery analysis shared with CNN, confirmed by European intelligence sources speaking to BBC, confirmed by a senior U.S. defense official who briefed reporters from the New York Times late tonight. And here is where the situation becomes even more dangerous. The launch units moving through western Iran are believed to include solid-fuel ballistic systems connected to the missile programs overseen by the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Solid fuel means something critical. They launch faster, they require less preparation, they can fire within minutes. And when those launchers disperse into mountainous terrain, they become incredibly difficult to destroy before firing. On paper, Israel possesses one of the most advanced air forces on Earth, but finding dozens of mobile launchers hidden across mountain valleys the size of entire U.S. states is a different challenge entirely. Let that sit for a moment. The most technologically advanced missile defense system in the Middle East may now be facing a mobile launch network designed specifically to evade it, but there is one more layer to this bombshell, and it involves geography. Some of the dispersal locations identified tonight sit dangerously close to Iraq's western border, territory where Iranian-aligned militias already operate freely, meaning the next phase of missile launches could come not only from Iran, but from multiple countries at once: Israel, Lebanon, Syria, possibly Iraq. 4 directions, 4 fronts, simultaneously. Strategists inside the Pentagon have warned about this exact scenario for years: a multi-vector missile saturation attack designed to overwhelm Israel's layered defenses. And if that scenario begins unfolding, the United States will face a decision it has tried desperately to avoid: direct military involvement. Because American radar installations, naval destroyers, and regional bases are already integrated into Israel's early warning network, which means if the next missile wave grows large enough, U.S. forces could be pulled directly into the fight, not diplomatically, militarily. And that reality is already starting to fracture the political response, both inside Washington and across the international community. The political response to tonight's missile sirens is already exposing deep fractures inside Washington, inside Israel's alliances, and across the international system that was supposed to prevent exactly this kind of escalation. Start with the United States. Within minutes of the first missile alerts, the Pentagon confirmed that U.S. regional radar assets and naval sensors helped track the incoming projectiles. American destroyers in the eastern Mediterranean remained on alert. Air defense coordination channels with Israel stayed active throughout the attack. Publicly, former President Donald Trump responded with a message posted on Truth Social warning that Iran would face overwhelming consequences if missile attacks against Israel continue. Short sentence, clear threat. But the reality inside Washington is far more complicated, because the public message coming from American political leaders is unity. But inside Congress, the divide is widening. According to reporting from Axios and NBC News, several U.S. senators have already begun privately questioning whether deeper American involvement could pull the country into another large-scale Middle East war. One senior senator told NBC News that the situation now carries serious risk of uncontrolled regional escalation. Translation: the nightmare scenario, and the Pentagon knows it. Trump told the public the United States would stand firmly behind Israel, but the Pentagon is planning for something much darker: the possibility that American bases in Iraq, Syria, and the Gulf could become targets if Iran expands the fight. Two audiences, actually three. The first audience is Iran, deterrence messaging. The second audience is American voters, reassurance that Washington remains in control. The third audience is the U.S. military itself, preparing quietly for the possibility that control may already be slipping. Meanwhile, the international reaction is moving in a completely different direction. The United Nations Security Council has already called for an emergency meeting following the missile launches. Diplomats from multiple European governments are pushing for immediate de-escalation. But here's the problem: diplomacy moves slowly, missiles move fast. France and Germany issued joint statements urging restraint. The BBC reports several Gulf states have privately warned that further escalation could threaten oil infrastructure across the region, and yet the military operations continue. Israeli aircraft are still flying strike missions. Iranian missile forces remain on alert. Proxy militias across Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq are watching closely for signals, so every diplomatic statement now runs into the same hard reality. There is no pause button. There is no diplomatic back channel that can stop what is already in motion. While missile sirens echoed across Israel tonight, another alarm started ringing across global financial markets: oil. Within minutes of the first confirmed Iranian launches, Brent crude futures jumped from $87.40 to $94.10 per barrel in overnight trading. That is a 7.7% spike in less than 3 hours. 7.7% in a single night. According to energy analysts at Goldman Sachs, the price surge reflects a single terrifying question now dominating global markets. Will this conflict reach the Strait of Hormuz? Because roughly 21% of the world's oil supply moves through that narrow waterway every single day. Tankers carrying crude from Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Iraq, all of it flowing through a channel just 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. If Iran decides to threaten that route, the shock would be immediate. Oil could jump to $120 per barrel within days. Not speculation, not theory. That forecast comes directly from analysts at Goldman Sachs and maritime insurers at Lloyd's of London, who have already begun raising risk premiums for ships entering the Persian Gulf. Insurance costs for a single supertanker crossing the region have surged 38% since last week. 38%. Let that sit for a moment, because when shipping insurance rises that fast, the cost does not stay in the shipping industry. It moves. It moves into refinery prices. It moves into gasoline distribution. And finally, it lands exactly where every viewer feels it: at the pump. The average U.S. gasoline price is currently $3.82 per gallon, according to data cited by Reuters. Energy economists warned that sustained conflict between Iran and Israel could push that number above $4.50 per gallon within weeks. That hit comes straight out of the wallet of every person filling up at the pump. But there is an even stranger economic development unfolding tonight. Shipping traffic through the Persian Gulf has already started rerouting, not because the strait is closed, but because insurers and shipping companies are preparing for the possibility that it could close without warning. That means longer routes, higher costs, and slower deliveries of both oil and liquefied natural gas shipments heading toward Europe and Asia, which creates a chain reaction. Energy prices spike, manufacturing costs rise, food transport becomes more expensive, and inflation pressure spreads across entire economies, all triggered by a few minutes of missile launches. If the current trajectory continues, if Iran fires again, if Israel expands its strikes, if shipping lanes become contested, the economic shock from this conflict will not stay in the Middle East. It will move through global markets like a shockwave, and the people who will feel it most are not generals. They are families. families trying to pay for gas, groceries, and electricity, while a war thousands of miles away pushes the cost of living higher every single day. While military briefings focus on missiles and interceptors, the human reality of this war looks very different on the ground. It looks like stairwells packed with families. It looks like children crying in the dark while concrete walls shake from distant explosions. And tonight in southern Israel, that reality has names. The youngest confirmed casualty from the latest attack is 7-year-old Noam Levi, a second-grade student from Ashkelon. According to reporting by Reuters and BBC, Noam was inside his family apartment when debris from an intercepted missile crashed through the roof of the building. 7 years old. His father described the moment to reporters outside the hospital emergency entrance. He was asleep. The sirens started. We ran to the safe room. Then we heard the explosion above us, he told BBC. Barefoot, in the hallway, running again. Across the city, rescue crews worked through damaged apartment blocks near the Barnea neighborhood of Ashkelon, where 2 residential buildings suffered heavy structural damage from falling missile fragments. Glass everywhere, cars crushed under debris, and families standing outside with nothing but the clothes they were wearing when the sirens began. International humanitarian groups are also warning that the regional escalation is expanding the civilian toll far beyond Israel's borders. According to the United Nations Children's Fund, at least 312 children have been killed across the wider regional conflict zones connected to the Iran-Israel escalation in the past 3 months alone. Data compiled by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project shows more than 4,800 civilians injured across Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and Gaza during the same period. 4,800. These are not statistics. They are families, they are children, they are elderly people who cannot move quickly. One witness described the chaos in Ashkelon tonight. Maya Cohen, a 34-year-old teacher, told CNN she was carrying her 5-year-old daughter down the apartment stairwell when the blast wave from a nearby explosion shook the building. I could smell smoke in the hallway. Everyone was shouting. People were pushing to get into the shelter, she said. And for some families, the tragedy carries a deeper layer. One of the destroyed apartments belonged to Eli and Shira Ben David, a couple who had moved into the building just 8 months ago after their previous home near the Gaza border was damaged during earlier rocket attacks. They rebuilt once. Tonight, they lost everything again. Furniture buried under rubble, photos scattered across broken floors, children's toys covered in dust and concrete fragments. This is what the numbers actually look like when they reach the ground. Not missile counts, not defense briefings, homes, families, lives that will never return to what they were before the sirens started. While military briefings focus on missiles and interceptors, the human reality of this war looks very different on the ground. It looks like stairwells packed with families. It looks like children crying in the dark while concrete walls shake from distant explosions. And tonight in southern Israel, that reality has names. The youngest confirmed casualty from the latest attack is 7-year-old Noam Levi, a second-grade student from Ashkelon. According to reporting by Reuters and BBC, Noam was inside his family apartment when debris from an intercepted missile crashed through the roof of the building, 7 years old. His father described the moment to reporters outside the hospital emergency entrance. He was asleep, the siren started, we ran to the safe room, then we heard the explosion above us, he told BBC, barefoot in the hallway, running again. Across the city, rescue crews worked through damaged apartment blocks near the Barnea neighborhood of Ashkelon, where 2 residential buildings suffered heavy structural damage from falling missile fragments. Glass everywhere, cars crushed under debris, and families standing outside with nothing but the clothes they were wearing when the sirens began. International humanitarian groups are also warning that the regional escalation is expanding the civilian toll far beyond Israel's borders. According to the United Nations Children's Fund, at least 312 children have been killed across the wider regional conflict zones connected to the Iran-Israel escalation in the past 3 months alone. Data compiled by the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project shows more than 4,800 civilians injured across Lebanon, Syria, Israel, and Gaza during the same period. 4,800. These are not statistics. They are families, they are children, they are elderly people who cannot move quickly. One witness described the chaos in Ashkelon tonight. Maya Cohen, a 34-year-old teacher, told CNN she was carrying her 5-year-old daughter down the apartment stairwell when the blast wave from a nearby explosion shook the building. I could smell smoke in the hallway. Everyone was shouting. People were pushing to get into the shelter, she said. And for some families, the tragedy carries a deeper layer. One of the destroyed apartments belonged to Eli and Shira Ben David, a couple who had moved into the building just 8 months ago after their previous home near the Gaza border was damaged during earlier rocket attacks. They rebuilt once. Tonight they lost everything again. Furniture buried under rubble, photos scattered across broken floors, children's toys covered in dust and concrete fragments. This is what the numbers actually look like when they reach the ground. Not missile counts, not defense briefings, homes, families, lives that will never return to what they were before the sirens started. Step back from the explosions, the sirens, the missile counts, and the political statements. What we are seeing tonight is something far larger than a single exchange of strikes. This is the structural shift that military planners have feared for years, the moment when the shadow war between Israel and Iran begins moving into direct confrontation. Because until recently, the conflict followed a predictable pattern. Iran armed proxy forces attacked Israel retaliated against those proxies. But the missile sirens tonight tell a different story. Direct fire, state to state, Iran launching missiles toward Israeli territory while Israel conducts retaliatory strikes against Iranian-linked targets across the region. That changes the strategic equation dramatically, because Iran does not need to defeat Israel militarily to create a global crisis. It only needs to prolong the confrontation. Iran still controls the largest missile inventory in the region. Intelligence estimates cited by the Pentagon place that arsenal above 3,000 ballistic and cruise missiles, many operated by units of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. 3,000. Even if Israel intercepts most of them, sustained barrages could still inflict damage over time. Infrastructure, ports, airports, civilian neighborhoods. But Israel also holds enormous military advantages: advanced air power, sophisticated missile defense systems, deep intelligence networks. On paper, that should tilt the balance heavily in Israel's favor, but wars are not fought only on paper, they are fought across time. And Iran's strategy has always relied on endurance, the ability to absorb punishment while slowly expanding the battlefield through allied militias in Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, and Yemen, which leads to the no-win trap now facing regional leaders. Either Israel launches a massive campaign directly against Iranian missile infrastructure, in which case the conflict could ignite multiple fronts simultaneously across the Middle East, or Israel limits its response and absorbs periodic missile attacks while attempting to contain the escalation. Neither answer ends this war. Either the battlefield widens or the attacks continue. And behind both scenarios sits the same looming question: how long the United States can remain on the sidelines, because American naval destroyers, early warning radar stations, and regional bases are already tied into Israel's defense architecture. If the missile barrages grow larger, U.S. forces may not be able to stay observers. They may become participants, which leaves one final unanswered question hanging over the next 24 hours. Will Iran fire again? Because if another wave of missiles crosses Israeli radar screens tomorrow night, the pressure for a far larger military response will become almost impossible to contain. In the burning streets of Ashkelon, in the command centers of Ramat David Air Base, in whatever hidden bunker in western Iran where commanders are deciding the next missile trajectory. Tonight, this war is everywhere. The people did not get to vote on it. Neither did the 312 children that UNICEF confirmed have been killed in the past 3 months across the regional conflict zones. Neither did the families buried under rubble, homes destroyed twice in less than a year. And yet their lives are the measurement of every strike, every calculation, every strategic decision being made behind closed doors. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications. Day 189 will bring potential new missile waves from multiple launch corridors, Israeli retaliatory strikes against expanded Iranian targets, and escalating international pressure on oil markets that could send global energy prices soaring. This is the channel that puts every piece together and tells you what it actually means. Subscribe. Tell me in the comments, will Iran escalate further in the next 48 hours? And can Israel contain the missile threat without broader U.S. involvement? I will see you in the next update.